this is my recruiting philosophy personally, and then kind of tailor it into where I'm at. Um, so obviously, anytime you're recruiting, you have to understand the rules of your conference and your governing body. So for us, NCAA, and then you also have to understand your university's rules, what compliances they have, what their budget is, all that good stuff. Then you really want to target kids and recruit kids that fit. So for us, we're a really rural school. We're out in the middle of nowhere, Texas. We have a very, very good wildlife program. We're also the cheapest school in the state. So that's kind of where we find our niche is more of the first generation low income kids, and also kids that they're into rural communities and into wildlife and ranching and stuff like that. So you have to find what fits your program, what you have to offer, and what kind of kids that are going to be the best fit, because retention, as we know, is huge. So, and then the next thing for me is just to evaluate their toughness, leadership, and character. As far as and their athletic ability and their academics, you have to evaluate all that. But if you can get a good evaluation of those three things, you can see what you need to on film. Those aren't things that you can necessarily see on film. Toughness sometimes, yeah. Leadership sometimes, yeah. But those are things you have to reach out to people for. So that's something that you have to go in and talk to coaches, talk to parents, talk to other sports teams, coaches, people who know that kid. So if you can find those three things, you can really evaluate someone, because you can on film. I think everyone that's at this level can evaluate a film. It's really about evaluating those other three things. And then recruit guys who love football in the process, just guys who want to be around the game. Football is a lot more, or college football is a lot more time consuming than high school athletics. So you have to find guys that love it. You have to find guys that really enjoy the process and that want to get better and want to show up at 6 a.m. workouts and then be doing homework until midnight and doing the same thing day in and day out, and understanding that it's all for a better goal. It's essentially, for a lot of these guys, their last 4 years of football. So they really should pour into it, because it's the last 4 years that they grinded a really long time to get to. So you should find guys that really love the process. Be thorough in your area, know the ins and outs, develop relationships with high school coaches, JC coaches in your area. Know what talent level is what. I know for me, I'm a junior college guy, played junior college, come from the junior college system, coaching and playing wise. If I'm going to go recruit junior college football from Sul Ross in California, I'm probably going to go to Northern California, just because of the fit. So you have to know your audience. You have to know the type of kids. And that's not to say you don't check in at schools in Southern California, but for the most part, there's, at least from my perspective, there's 2 different states, Northern and Southern California, and there's a lot different kid in both. So if you're recruiting rural, it's probably better to go to the more rural places and find those kids. So just knowing your area, understanding where your talent's coming from and what kind of people they're going to be overall. No, that's not that you lump them all and stereotype all in one, but you get a pretty good idea after dealing with someone for a couple of years, or an area at least. Build a relationship with recruits. This is huge for me. I'm a player's coach. I think that's kind of my niche in recruiting as well, is really relating with these players, student athletes, and kind of talking about what they want to talk about while still getting your point across. I mean, for me, a big part of it when you show up to some campus, it's important to get what the kids want to do and talk academics, but ask the kid who his team is on Madden. Ask the kid what his favorite pregame song is right now. What's on the playlist? Stuff like that. That's what kids want to hear. That's what kids want to talk about. And if you happen to know something, for myself, I play Madden still. I still listen to some rap music that's probably on a lot of these kids' playlists. So if you know what they're talking about, you can say, "Oh yeah, I know this artist," or I'll beat you with the Browns, or whatever it is. They tend to open up to you a lot more. And another thing, part of that building relationships is when you're on those visits, sit down and talk with the coach before you leave. Get on the board, give an idea, talk about what they're doing, communicate with them about just X's and O's. That's what coaches like. So really find out what the individual you're communicating with is into, and talk about that. I mean, it's pretty simple. It's a lot like dating. You know, you gotta court people. You gotta know what they like and talk about what they like. You can get to, as we know as coaches, the honeymoon stage ends quick. You know, once they're on campus, we're not talking about what they want to talk about anymore. We're talking about what I want to talk about. So you get to the X's and O's and the installs real quick, but you gotta definitely do your part and kids and learn the coaches that you're in the areas you're with. Follow up with enrollment. So for us, it's huge. That's kind of the committing factor. We know they're going to commit once they've enrolled in school, once they've gotten into the dorms. So just checking up on that stuff, track their progress in school, making sure they're getting good grades, even seeing what their weight room numbers are. Talk about your weight program, you know, what their major is, what they have to offer. So it's just about getting them excited about showing up and getting on your campus. Once you have them here on a visit, for the most part, you're getting a pretty good percentage of those guys. For me, in my areas, when I'm talking about defensive players, there's a kind of a list I go down to grade a defensive player and to kind of decide what I want. Does he like contact? Is he physical? It's pretty simple. Football is a violent sport. Then you need violent players to play it. So that's kind of my first and foremost is he physical and does he like contact on defense? Can he run and hit? That kind of goes with number one. But kind of the running part of it is you'll see at the bottom, kind of an asterisk, is I'd rather try to make an athlete bigger and stronger than make a strong kid more athletic. I'm more of the bullets over bowling balls, especially at the level I'm at. I think if you get speed on the field at all positions, the better off you are. So can they run? How close is he to the ball at the end of the play? I think you can decide how important a team is to a defensive player by how close he is to the ball at the end of the play. And it's a great deciding factor on how much it means to him. So that's one that's huge for me. Even D linemen. I mean, obviously on fade balls that are 40 yards on the field, I don't expect them to get all the way to the football unless it's a drawn out play. But you expect guys to really get a 10-yard, 15-yard burst towards it. In a real life situation. Obviously in practice it's different. We harp on the crazy stuff and say, hey, run away down the field. But in a game, more realistic, you say, hey, does that guy really want to get to the ball if he could have got there? Does he play with violence? Like I said, I'm huge on being physical, liking contact, being aggressive. Does the guy play with a certain controlled violence that you need to play defense? I mean, it's not natural for human beings to want to run 25 miles an hour into another human being running full speed. So you got to get guys that kind of like that and enjoy that and embrace it. So that's another thing I definitely look for in defensive players. How explosive is he? Can he jump? Can he get from point A to point B quickly? Obviously, angles are huge on defense, so making sure that he understands angles and he can get there as fast as possible. Does he do his job? So his 111th. Basically, you got on defense. It's a puzzle piece, especially when you're talking about fitting the run. You gotta be in your gap doing your job, and then it's not. I tell my guys, because we have a grading system. A lot of the times you'll get guys graded really high with no impact points. So it's not about just being graded high. It's about doing your job, being graded high, and making plays. So the guys that are graded pretty high and have a lot of plays made are the guys that are going to be in the game. So just going through the motions and getting a 99% on the graded film every practice isn't enough. You got to go do your job plus some. So our guys willing to do that. Football smart, can you get aligned? That's huge. Defense, for me, I don't know what the exact stat is, but they say it's somewhere up in the high 80s that football or touchdowns in football are on misalignments and missed tackles. So for me, if I can teach my guys how to tackle and I can teach those guys how to get aligned, we'll be in a decent spot, even if they just cover the guy in front of them to stop the offense from scoring at least. So that's another one for me. Do I have to reteach the guy football? Obviously you don't discriminate if you got a 6A guy versus a 1A guy. You got to just overall recruit them, but it's really you have to understand these kids' knowledge levels, because you can only throw so much at a kid who doesn't even know where to get aligned. So that's huge for me.